Hi, I'm Chris Wilson from Grinding Gear Games. This is Season 2, Episode 4 of Build of the Week, a video series where we highlight interesting Path of Exile character builds. Today's episode is slightly different than normal. We aren't showcasing a build created by our community, but one that we've put together ourselves for people who are looking for ideas of what to run in our upcoming 2-week race. The event runs from May 10th to 24th US time, and is designed to raise money for the Child's Play charity. If you haven't heard of them, they are a gaming charity dedicated to improving the lives of children by providing toys and games to over 70 hospitals worldwide. Thanks to the generosity of some of our industry partners, we've also arranged a variety of awesome prizes to be given away randomly to competitors, such as Nvidia graphics cards, Razer mice and keyboards, and of course, piles of Path of Exile microtransactions. During the event, we will be offering an exclusive microtransaction, the Angelic Mask, with all of the proceeds going to the Child's Play charity. Once the event ends, the mask won't be available again. The race itself is a hardcore event with the properties of both the Ambush and Invasion challenge leagues. We've put considerable effort into rebalancing Invasion recently, so we feel that the event will be a lot of fun for everyone. Characters that die in the race are still eligible for prizes. If your character survives the race, then you can continue that character in the Invasion League afterwards. While a lot of the fun of Path of Exile is experimenting with character builds, there isn't much time in a 2-week race to try too many characters. Many players want to know in advance how to build their race character. If you look in the class forums on PathofExile.com, you'll find plenty of powerful builds, but we're highlighting our own one here that uses a recently introduced skill, Molten Strike. This video is quite long, so we're going to demonstrate the build at high levels before explaining how it's created. As you can see, Molten Strike launches magma projectiles as you hit. The skill deals a combination of fire and physical damage, and has both an attack and an area of effect component. This means that there are a lot of options for how to support it. You get Molten Strike after killing Hillock at the start of the game, so it's with you on your entire journey with this character. The skills shown here are generally ones that you get as quest rewards from playing a duelist. There's a little bit of pressure over several of the rewards where you need to tweak what you pick based on what you've naturally found. A couple of gems can be traded for earlier than you would receive them from quest rewards to speed up leveling. We use the Hatred Aura for additional damage and Grace for additional survivability. Where possible, try to cast Enduring Cry whenever you can near monsters. Its flat physical damage resistance stacks very well with this character's high armor. It's important to cast the Enfeeble Curse on anything dangerous, especially invasion bosses, until you have a good idea of whether you can handle their damage potential. You'll have noticed that there's quite a lot of focus on survivability. Being a hardcore league, this is of prime importance. This build is built to be very survivable, so if you follow our advice and are very careful with how many monsters you engage, you'll hopefully be fine. Unless something goes wrong, you will reach maps with this build. The build has high life and life regeneration. Its primary mitigation type is armor. It achieves this by using iron reflexes, which turns all of your evasion into armor. This means that gear choices are substantially simpler, because evasion and armor are mostly interchangeable. Armor only helps against physical damage, so having maxed out resistances is critical, especially in the Invasion League. It's important to note that Merciless introduces a minus 60% resistance penalty, so you're going to want to be above cap by the end of Cruel. This build also uses the popular Cast When Damage Taken Enduring Cry Immortal Call combo for physical immunity when it really matters. This race inherits its properties from Invasion and Ambush, both of which pose challenges. While we have rebalanced Invasion recently, the presence of unpredictable guest monsters or invasion bosses can mean that you have to be prepared for damage types that you aren't expecting. The League's Ambush heritage means that you'll find enchantable strongboxes. While many people view these as a source of free items in the Ambush League, they are more scary in a hardcore league like this. Being surrounded by monsters is rarely a safe situation, but there are several tools available to get you out of trouble. This character currently places a smoke mine prior to opening a strongbox, and then teleports out of the way as soon as the monsters appear, which gives you space to assess the situation and blinds the monsters for safety. It's also important to be aware what monsters are in the current area before deciding whether to open a strongbox. Some areas can have exploding squid, so being surrounded by a few packs of those can be deadly. While the rewards from strongboxes are substantial, you don't have to open each one. You may be able to con a party member into it. Flasks are a really important part of a character's build. Some players don't put enough emphasis on rolling good flasks, but they're critical in a hardcore league like this one. Pick up all superior flasks that you find so you can trade them at vendors for glassblowers baubles. Having high quality versions of your final flasks provides large benefits for only marginal effort. Take the time to roll your life flasks. Having them both restore life instantly and also remove a status ailment will save your character's life. Collect and craft as many resistance flasks as you can. They're not only useful for swapping into against specific invasion bosses, but also for crafting granite flasks that this build wants at higher levels. You'll easily be able to trade away your surplus resistance flasks for anything your build might lack. This character relies entirely on rare items and needs no specific uniques. We aren't recommending any uniques because it's hard to rely on finding a specific desired unique in a 2-week event. You're likely to find good leveling uniques, and you should adapt the build to take advantage of these as you go. In terms of rares, you should be prioritizing life, overcapping your resistances, and getting as much armor and later evasion as you can. For a weapon, any fast weapon with decent damage will do. It doesn't have to be a sword or even a one-handed item if you find a better alternative. Early on, two-handed weapons can provide a big leveling speed increase if you're careful. The character we're showing here is after it's found a 5-link armor. If you only have a 4-link armor, then either drop the melee physical damage support gem or the blood magic support gem. If you're not using the blood magic gem, then you won't be able to run the grace aura. You'll also need to use mana flasks instead of granite flasks to compensate. The 5-link armor is a big upgrade, but isn't mandatory. In a similar vein, there are many key decisions you have to make as you level this character. By level 9, your passive skill tree will look like this. You have a passive point available and haven't yet committed to one-hand or two-hand weapons. Feel free to pick either cluster based on your current best weapon. It's easy to respec it later. It's also no problem to specialize in one-hand passives, but to use a two-hand item for a few levels, you'll be doing plenty of damage. As well as Molten Strike, you'll have been able to pick up some useful skills at low levels. Fire Trap and Decoy Totem are really good quest rewards for area damage and survivability respectively. It's also really worthwhile to get the Quicksilver Flask quest reward from the Tidal Island. Level 17. You've committed to one hand, and have grabbed these life nodes and the leather and steel notable, which allows you to use a body armor and shield without movement penalty. The decision is whether to travel to Iron Reflexes for survivability or Resolute Technique for damage next. You now have the Leap Slam skill available and are using a tower shield for its armor. Congratulations, level 35. You're now eligible to win any of the physical prizes we're awarding in the event. At this point, you've finished normal difficulty and are just starting cruel. On the passive tree, you've traveled to the Marauder area to get Resolute Technique. Accuracy and critical strikes are now both irrelevant to you. On the way, you've grabbed some decent notable passives. In order to use the skills easily while running the Hatred Aura, you had to allocate these 2 mana passives. You can unspec these points later when you have reduced mana or blood magic support gems. Because of the cruel resistance penalty, it's now important to prioritize resistances and items you're picking. Shields are a great place to find easy resistances. You should also start your collection of resistance flasks. Level 47. You've now allocated Iron Reflexes, which allows you to use evasion and armor gear interchangeably. You've traveled north to allocate the Berserking notable. You now need to decide between scooping up Marauder nodes such as Resistances, Life, and Life Regeneration, or heading up to the Templar area for Area of Effect, Weapon Elemental Damage, and Life. Your gear and resistances have continued to improve, especially due to finding or crafting rare dual resist rings. Level 60. You are now able to unspec the mana passives that you've been relying on. It's also worth grabbing 30 dexterity if you plan to use the Grace Aura. There are some great notable passives in the Templar area that are worth allocating, such as Crusader, Discipline and Training, and Amplify. On the way to the Templar area, if you find yourself running into resistance problems, you can allocate Diamond Skin. At this point in your character's progress, you can return to the Merciless Tidal Island to get the Blood Magic Gem, so that you can run 2 auras. If you have a reduced mana gem available, you'll want to run Hatred and Grace. Otherwise, you probably want to use Hatred and whatever resistance aura is most useful to you. It's probably good to save the normal and cruel Siosa quest rewards until this choice needs to be made. The problem with running a 60-40 aura split is that you have 0 mana to use other skills like Leap Slam or Smoke Mine, unless you obtain Blood Magic Gems for them too. We'd recommend the Hatred and Grace combo, as it is the most defensive and leaves a little mana left over for other skills, but it requires trading for or finding a reduced mana gem. At this level, you may not have multi-strike yet. Run the melee physical damage support gem until you're able to get multi-strike from Merciless Siosa. At this point, you've also taken off your mana flasks and are running granite flasks. Your collection of resistance flasks is improving. At level 72, your character looks like the early maps character we showed before. Your recent passive skill points have been spent over to the right on these life nodes and on some powerful nodes early in the Marauder tree. You've also dropped the dexterity node that you don't need anymore. It's worth picking additional endurance charges in the Templar and Duelist areas to improve Enduring Cry. After finishing Merciless difficulty and completing all of the relevant quest rewards, you've farmed Piety and the Archives for experience, and the items required to prepare for maps. You've also used the vendor recipe to generate enough Glassblower's baubles to max out most of the quality on your flasks. There are several directions this character can be taken in the future. For increased survivability, you can cut up here and take the 4 life nodes that include Holy Strength. Elemental Adaptation is within easy reach. These 4 shield nodes on the left are very good. In terms of damage, if you want to commit to swords, you can get these good duelist passives, including Wicked Blade and Blade Master. Otherwise, cut through attack speed or near these life nodes and then work towards finesse and these damage nodes in the Ranger tree. You should consider these excellent nearby nodes such as Aspect of the Panther, Weapon Artistry, Precise Interception, and Fencing. We've posted a brief set of notes about this build that include relevant recipes, links to the passive skill tree at different levels, a breakdown of quest rewards and bandit choices, and notes on gear that we used. These notes are linked from the video description. Hopefully this build works as well for you as it does for us. While it certainly could be improved with better items, it's a good starting build for a race like this, and will give you a decent character to use in the Invasion League once the race is over. Thanks for watching this video. We look forward to seeing you in the event this coming weekend. We're hoping to raise a lot of money for the Child's Play charity and look forward to seeing what other awesome builds players come up with in the event.